A group of teens shoved a 90-year-old Marine veteran into the street for laughs. But when a former Marine saw it happen and made one quiet phone call, the entire block watched justice walk in without saying a word. Elias Trenton walked the same 2 blocks every morning. Same cane, same faded green cap with the words U.S. Marine Corps barely holding on above the brim. Locals in that stretch of Shreveport, Louisiana, especially the older crowd, knew him as Mr. Elias. He was polite, soft-spoken, and always out the door before 8 a.m. to grab a paper and a bottle of grapefruit juice from Percy's Corner Mart. That morning, the sun was sharp, casting long shadows from the utility poles along Highland Avenue. Elias had just exchanged a few words with Percy, thanked him as always, and tucked his change into his front pocket. He stepped outside, blinked up at the light, and adjusted his cap, just like he always did. But that day wasn't like the others. Across the street, a group of teens, 4 boys, maybe 16 or 17, leaned against a chain-link fence. One of them, lanky, in a white tank top and oversized jeans, flicked a half-lit cigarette into the gutter and elbowed the kid next to him. "Look at Grandpa over there," he said, loud enough for anyone to hear. "Still thinking he's storming the beach or something?" Another one pulled out his phone and hit record. Elias didn't hear the first part, but he saw the phone, saw the way they watched him, laughed in that way that wasn't about anything funny. He lowered his head and kept walking, trying to pretend they weren't there. He'd been through worse. Then came the sound of sneakers behind him. Not running, just fast walking. Elias turned slightly, just as one of them brushed past, a little too close. A second boy came up on the other side. "Need help crossing, old man?" the second one said, grinning, holding up his phone an inch from Elias's face. Elias raised a hand gently. "Back up," he said, calm but firm. "You don't need to be doing all this." But they weren't listening. The first one nudged him from behind. Not hard, but enough to make Elias shift his cane. "You served or something?" another asked. "Where's your medals at, huh?" "I served," Elias said, "and I'd do it again. Now go on." One of them chuckled. "Damn, he think he's still in charge." Then, without warning, the smallest boy, the quietest one up until that point, shoved him. Elias stumbled. His cane slid on the edge of the curb. For a moment he looked like he'd catch himself, but he didn't. He went down, face first into the street, his shoulder hitting the pavement with a thud that even startled the kid who pushed him. The phone dropped for a second. A car at the light honked. 2 people on the other side of the street screamed. "Hey, what the hell is wrong with y'all?" someone yelled. One of the boys laughed, but it was shaky. "He's fine, man. He's fine." But he wasn't. Elias tried to sit up. His elbow scraped, his glasses cracked. His cap lay a few feet away in the gutter, soaked from a puddle. No one helped him, not at first. Then a man crossed the street. He wasn't yelling. He didn't rush. He just moved fast enough to let the teens know he wasn't part of them. He crouched next to Elias and looked him in the eye. "Sir, you all right? Stay with me, okay?" Elias grimaced but gave a slight nod. The man looked up, face hard, jaw locked. He wasn't old, maybe mid-30s, tall, broad-shouldered, with a tattoo peeking out from under his shirt sleeve. "You get all that on video?" he asked one of the kids holding a phone. The kid hesitated, then pocketed it. The man stood up. "Good. Now listen up." But he didn't finish his sentence. Instead, he pulled out his phone, turned away, and made a call. But the person he called wasn't the police, and what happened next changed everything. The man who helped Elias off the ground was Kellen Brooks, 33 years old, ex-Marine, and now a part-time mechanic at his cousin's garage 3 blocks over. He hadn't planned to stop by Percy's that morning. He usually avoided Highland Avenue around that time. Too much teenage noise. Too early. But his truck had been acting up again, and Percy sold a fuel treatment Kellen liked better than anything they stocked at the big stores. He'd been leaning against the side of his truck, sipping coffee from a styrofoam cup, when he saw Elias go down. That moment, it triggered something. His mind flicked back to Kandahar, to the time an Afghan elder was shoved down by a teenage boy during a patrol. Different place, different war, but that same disrespectful shove. That same stunned silence afterward. Kellen didn't hesitate. He threw his cup aside and crossed the street in 5 long strides. Now, as he stood over Elias, still on the phone, his voice dropped low and clear. "Yeah, we got a situation. Yeah, it's him." He paused, listening. Then, "I'm dead serious." Shoved him right into the street. 4 of them. Phones out, joking about it like it's a game. Another pause. "No, we don't need cops right now. I need you. Get the crew." He hung up and slipped his phone into his back pocket. Elias was sitting up now, holding the edge of the curb with one hand. Blood was dripping slowly from his elbow. Kellen crouched again. "I got you," he said quietly. "Help's coming." Elias blinked up at him, one eye squinting behind the cracked lens of his glasses. "You a Marine?" Elias asked. Kellen nodded. "Yes, sir. 1st Battalion, Camp Pendleton. You?" "3rd Battalion. Chosen Reservoir," Elias said, wincing. "We lost a lot of good men out there." "I know, sir," Kellen said. "And they're the reason I'm here now." Behind them, the teens were beginning to shift. One of them, the one with the tank top, looked suddenly unsure. "Yo, man, we didn't mean for him to fall like that," he muttered. Kellen didn't answer. He was watching the street now, waiting. A small crowd had formed. 10, maybe 15 people. Phones out, sure, but also eyes wide. Everyone sensed something different was coming. Not revenge, not chaos, but something heavy. Something that would change the temperature of that street corner for a long time. Across the street, one of the teens started to back away, but he didn't get far. The sound came first. Tires against asphalt. Low engines, moving slow but with purpose. Not sirens, no flashing lights, just 3 trucks rolling up Highland like they belonged there. First one was a silver Ford with blacked-out windows. The second had a Marine Corps bumper sticker faded from too much sun. The third was a battered Dodge Ram, the kind that had clearly hauled more than just lumber in its lifetime. They parked without urgency. Doors opened. Out stepped 8 men. Different builds, different ages. But they all carried themselves the same way. Shoulders straight, steps measured, eyes locked on the scene ahead. Kellen stood up. He gave them a half nod. "Appreciate it," he said. The tallest one, mid-40s, goatee, hands scarred from years of work, stepped forward. "Where's the old man?" Kellen gestured to Elias. "Right here. Took a fall. These kids decided he wasn't walking fast enough." The man's jaw flexed. He looked toward the teens, who were suddenly silent. "No one's touching anyone," he said calmly. "But we're not letting this slide." The Marines walked forward. Not fast, not aggressive, just there, present. Enough that the space around Elias and Kellen felt different, protected. The teens didn't know what to do. They weren't laughing anymore. One kid pocketed his phone. Another looked down at his shoes. "You got this on camera?" the tall Marine asked Kellen. "Some of it," he replied. "I'll send it to you later." Elias tried to stand, but Kellen helped him to his feet. The old man leaned heavily on his cane, his face pale but proud. "I'm okay," he muttered. "I know you are," Kellen said. "But you shouldn't have to be. Not like this." But Kellen also knew silence wasn't enough. And the real shift was just beginning. The street had gone quiet, like the air itself had paused. The teens didn't move. Nobody spoke above a murmur. A mother walking her toddler across the street pulled him a little closer. A guy at the bus stop lowered his headphones and just watched. Kellen could feel the tension. Not the kind that leads to fists flying, but the kind that makes every move louder than it should be. He stepped to the side, giving the new arrivals space. These weren't just any veterans. These were men who'd worn the uniform, trained together, buried friends together. Some were still fighting battles in their heads. But right now, they were here for Elias. The tall Marine, Russell Vance, looked over at the group of teens. "What's your names?" None of them answered. The one in the tank top chewed on his lip. Another one pretended to check something on his phone. Russell didn't push it. He turned to Kellen. "You saw it happen?" "I did," Kellen said. And I saw them laugh about it. Anyone touch you? Russell asked Elias gently. Just that one, Elias said, pointing with his cane toward the smallest boy. Didn't even look sorry. The boy shifted on his feet. I ain't mean nothing. He just tripped. Elias gave a dry cough, half laugh, half pain. Son, I've been walking these sidewalks since before your mama was born. I don't trip. Russell took a slow step forward. He didn't raise his voice. You think this is a game? That pushing a 90-year-old man is some viral moment for your little phones? No one answered. They just stood there, suddenly looking younger, smaller. You know who he is? Russell asked. That man over there took a bullet at Incheon. Watched friends bleed out in the snow. And you pushed him because he was walking too slow? Still nothing. Until the boy who had pushed Elias spoke up. His voice was low, almost hard to hear. I didn't know he was like that. Kellen narrowed his eyes. Like that? What does that mean? I thought he was just some old dude. Russell's jaw clenched. And if he was? That make it all right? The boy didn't answer. Another vet. Luis Aranda, short but thick with muscle and a permanent squint from years working as a welder, moved beside Russell. We're not here to hurt you, Luis said. But you're gonna listen. Kellen stepped forward again. We're not cops. No one's going to arrest you. Not today. But let me tell you something, and you better hear me. The boys looked up. You think you're tough because you hang out on the block and throw words around like you mean something. But the men standing in front of you? We've buried tougher guys than you. We've watched kids with more courage than you beg for their mamas before dying in the dirt. He paused. You think pushing an old man is power? That's weakness. That's a cry for attention you didn't earn. The silence stretched out. A few cars passed slowly. One woman filming from her porch whispered, My God. Then Russell pulled out his phone and made a call of his own. He turned away slightly, but everyone nearby could still hear it. Yeah, he said. It's me. We're at Highland and Olive. Got a situation you need to see. Pause. Yeah. Bring the van. And the flags. He hung up and slid his phone away. Kellen gave him a questioning look. You'll see, Russell said. They need to see something real. But whatever Russell had just set in motion wasn't for the teens. It was for everyone watching. 10 minutes later, the van rolled in. It was an old gray Chevy, the kind that used to carry youth baseball teams. But this one had its paint chipped and patched, and the back windows were covered with laminated newspaper clippings, faded bumper stickers, and something unexpected. 2 folded American flags displayed behind the glass. It stopped at the edge of the sidewalk, near the small crowd that had grown to nearly 30 people now. A woman stepped out first. Regina Polk, tall, built like a linebacker, but with a voice that could calm a riot. She was in her 50s, wore a Marine's hoodie, and had the kind of presence that made people instinctively quiet down. Behind her came Donnie Hatch, older, slower, but steady. He carried a plastic container and a tri-folded American flag under his arm. His hands shook slightly, but his eyes were focused. Russell met them halfway. You brought the photos? Regina nodded. All of them. Luis helped set up the folding table. No one had expected a display, but that's exactly what it became. The veterans moved in rhythm, like they'd rehearsed this before. Photo boards went up first. Snapshots of young Marines, some smiling, some in uniform, some faded with time. Then Donnie placed 2 sets of dog tags on the table and gently laid the folded flags beside them. Regina turned to the teens. You ever seen a man's story before he got a headline? She asked. You want to record something? Record this. One of the kids, the tallest, lowered his phone for the first time. His eyes were locked on a black and white photo of a man not much older than himself, holding a rifle in Korea, squinting into the sun. That's my brother, Donnie said. He was 19, stepped on a landmine 2 weeks before coming home. Regina tapped another photo. That one? My cousin. Got hit in Beirut in '83. Body came back in a box. The boys stood still, silent. Even the ones who had cracked jokes earlier. Kellen stepped up, motioned toward Elias, who was now sitting on a chair someone brought from Percy's. That man over there? He survived things y'all couldn't imagine. Cold that burns your skin off. Screams that don't stop ringing. He came back and walked this same block for 50 years, quietly without asking for anything, Russell added. He didn't push anybody. He didn't pull a phone out and act like someone's pain was funny. He built this country's backbone while your generation's trying to live stream its collapse. A murmur moved through the crowd. A few people clapped softly. One of the mothers in the back wiped her eye. Another elderly man saluted Elias from the corner near the laundromat. The youngest boy, Jalen, the one who shoved Elias, took a step forward. He looked at Elias, then at the flag on the table, and said, almost a whisper, "I didn't know." "You didn't care to know," Russell replied, not angry, just tired. "That's the problem." Elias cleared his throat. His voice was rough but steady. "Young man," he said, looking straight at Jalen, "I've been knocked down before. That ain't new to me. But what you don't know is, every time someone like me gets knocked down and nobody does anything, that's when we lose something bigger." Jalen stared at the ground. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he said. "I swear I didn't think... I thought you'd just curse us out or something." Elias looked at him. "You're lucky I didn't. Not because I can't, but because I've lived long enough to know shouting doesn't teach anything." The moment hung there. No more yelling, no cops. Just a folding table, 2 flags, and the weight of history. Regina pulled something out of her back pocket. An old challenge coin. She walked over to Jalen and held it up. "You ever seen one of these?" she asked. He shook his head. "This is what respect looks like in our world. You don't earn one by pushing old men. You earn it by lifting others up." She handed it to him. He didn't take it. Not yet. But the silence between them was no longer the same, and something was finally starting to shift. The street corner looked different now. Same traffic lights, same buildings, same morning breeze, but the air had weight to it. Everyone could feel it. What started as a cruel shove had turned into something none of them had expected. A history lesson with flesh and blood and a pulse. Jalen still hadn't taken the coin from Regina's hand. His eyes bounced from her face to Elias, then down to the photo boards and back again. He looked like a kid caught between 2 versions of himself. The one who thought he was invincible, and the one who suddenly understood how small he really was. Tyrese, the ringleader in the white tank top, couldn't stand the silence. He rolled his eyes, trying to reclaim the cool that had slipped away. "Man, y'all doing too much. It ain't like we shot nobody." Kellen turned, slow and deliberate. "You think that's the bar now?" he asked. "Nobody got shot, so it's all good?" Tyrese shrugged. "Y'all acting like this dude's royalty or something. I didn't even touch him." "You stood there and laughed," Regina said, her tone sharper now. "You think that's better?" "I ain't know he was a vet." "You shouldn't need to know," Kellen snapped. "That man could have been anyone. Your teacher, your neighbor, someone's father." "Whatever, man," Tyrese muttered. "Y'all got your little show, we get it." Donnie stepped forward, his walk slower but deliberate. "You don't get anything yet, son. That's the problem." Tyrese crossed his arms. "Man, what you gonna do? Lecture me to death?" "No," Donnie said. "I'm gonna tell you a story. And if you're smart, you'll listen." That stopped Tyrese, just a little. Donnie adjusted his cap and looked past the boys as if seeing a different street entirely. 1968. I was in a village outside Da Nang. Hot. Dirty. Loud. We were holding a position near a school. One of the kids, maybe 8 years old, stepped on a mine. Blew off his foot. His mother came running out, screaming, holding him like she could will the pieces back together. He paused. His voice steady, but his hands fidgeting slightly. 2 of my men just stared. Couldn't move. Couldn't look away. And I realized in that moment, you don't need to pull a trigger to destroy someone. All it takes is standing still while somebody else suffers. He turned his eyes back to Tyrese. "So no, you didn't push him, but you didn't stop it either. And that makes you part of it." The crowd murmured again. A few people shifted their weight. One woman whispered, "He's right." Jalen, still holding back, finally reached for the coin. He didn't pocket it. He just held it in his palm, staring down like it might vanish. I didn't want it to go like that, he said. I just thought it'd be funny. Was it? Elias asked. Jalen looked at him. No, sir. Then you learned something, Elias replied. Pain's a teacher most folks try to avoid. But once it shows up, you better listen. Tyrese scoffed. Y'all act like one mistake means we trash forever. No, Regina said. But not learning from it? That's what'll keep you stuck. Tyrese looked away. Russell stepped in again. You can pretend this didn't matter. You can walk away and keep being hard. But one day, you'll be old too, and you'll wonder if anybody still sees you. If your story means anything, he pointed toward Elias. That man's still standing. After war. After loss. After watching generations forget what men like him went through. And today, all he got for that was a shove. Kellen added, You can't undo what you did, but you can decide what happens next. Tyrese didn't speak. His eyes flickered with something. Anger, maybe, or fear, or the first uncomfortable edges of guilt. The crowd watched, waiting. The air didn't move. But the moment wasn't finished yet, and what came next would catch even Elias off guard. Jalen stood frozen, still holding the coin in his palm. His fingers curled around it, like he wasn't sure if he deserved to keep it or not. Tyrese kept glancing toward the street, like he was waiting for someone to step in, maybe a cop, maybe a parent, someone to drag him out of this mess. But no one came. The crowd stayed. The veterans stayed. And Elias? He took a deep breath and stood. No one helped him this time. Not because they didn't want to, but because he didn't let them. His cane pressed into the sidewalk like a flagpole. His back straightened, and for the first time that morning, his voice filled the space without needing to be raised. I was 19 when I saw my first body drop, Elias said. Didn't even know the man's name. Just knew he was with us the day before. Then boom, gone. Never saw it coming. He paused. His eyes scanned the faces in front of him. Kids with hoods up, veterans with scars, parents holding their phones tight like they weren't sure whether to keep filming or put them down out of respect. After that, he went on, you stop looking at life like a game. You stop trying to prove you're the toughest person in the room. 'Cause you learn real fast that toughness ain't loud. Toughness ain't shoving someone smaller or older or slower. Toughness is carrying pain without making others bleed for it. Jalen swallowed hard. His hands were trembling now. I didn't have a dad growing up, he said suddenly. The words fell out fast. My mom worked nights, slept through the day. We moved a lot. I used to make fun of old people too, 'cause, I don't know. It felt like they had time I didn't have. Elias didn't react. He let the boy talk. I didn't mean to knock you down, Jalen said. But when I saw you fall, I felt sick right away. I didn't laugh, not really. I just didn't know what to do. Regina stepped in beside Elias, but she didn't say anything yet. She just placed her hand lightly on his shoulder. Elias looked at Jalen. You know how you fix that? Jalen blinked. How? You make a different choice the next time. Tyrese scoffed again, but it wasn't as sharp this time. Man, you think saying sorry fixes everything? No, Kellen said, stepping in now. But silence fixes nothing. Then from the back of the crowd, a voice broke through. Mr. Elias? Heads turned. A young woman pushed her way forward, maybe late 20s, wearing a nurse's uniform and holding a clipboard. Her eyes were wide, uncertain. It's me. Kira, she said. You used to come into my mom's diner every Saturday. You gave me a 20 for my graduation. Elias's face softened. I remember. You were the first in your family to go to college, right? She nodded quickly. You told me never to waste my voice. She turned to the teens. I hope you're listening. Because this man, he doesn't just walk through this neighborhood. He built it. Tyrese looked down. The other two boys behind him didn't speak, but they weren't trying to leave either. Luis crossed his arms. You got a decision to make. Keep hiding behind your mistakes, or grow from them. Jalen took a slow breath. I want to say something. Elias gave him a nod. Jalen turned to the crowd. I was wrong. For real, I wasn't thinking, but I'm sorry. Not just to him, to all of y'all. I thought this was funny, but now I feel like I just spat on something I didn't understand. For the first time, Regina smiled. Just a little. Russell clapped him on the shoulder, firm but not hard. That's a start. Tyrese didn't speak. But he didn't walk away either. But even as words started breaking through the silence, action was still waiting its turn, and what followed gave the crowd something they'd never forget. Tyrese stood with his arms still folded, eyes locked on the ground. The smirk he'd worn earlier had long faded. Something in his posture changed. Shoulders that had been puffed up now dropped just slightly. He didn't want to be here anymore, but he didn't leave. That mattered. Jalen took a step back, now standing beside the other boys, still gripping the challenge coin like it was made of glass. One of his friends whispered something to him, but Jalen didn't respond. He just stared straight ahead, his face flushed, jaw tight. Elias sat back down, his knees aching from standing. Kellen handed him a bottle of water someone in the crowd had offered, and Elias took a small sip before looking up at Tyrese. "You got something to say, too?" Elias asked, calm as ever. The question hung there. The crowd shifted again. A couple of people in the back were getting antsy, unsure if this was going to end peacefully or boil over. Tyrese opened his mouth, then closed it again. "I don't know what y'all want from me," he finally said. Elias didn't flinch. "No one's asking you for anything." Tyrese looked up. "But you just did. You asked if I got something to say." "I asked," Elias replied, "because it's your moment to take. Or not. That's on you." For the first time all morning, Tyrese didn't shoot back. His mouth twisted like he was chewing on something bitter. Then he surprised everyone. "I was 9 when I saw my uncle get beat up by some dudes outside a liquor store," he said, voice quieter than before. "Nobody helped him. Not one person. He laid there while folks just walked past, like he was trash." He paused. "Since then, I just figured, you survive by not caring. You don't slow down. You don't stop, 'cause nobody's gonna stop for you." Russell's face didn't soften, but he nodded slightly. "That's a hell of a way to live." "It's the only way I knew," Tyrese said. "Till today, I guess." The crowd had gone dead silent again. But this silence didn't feel tense. It felt like waiting to see if a kid like Tyrese could finally be real. "I didn't think pushing some old man was anything," he continued. "I didn't think about who he was, just that he was in the way. But when I saw him fall, I knew I messed up. I just didn't know how to say it." Regina stepped closer. "You just did." Tyrese looked at Elias. "I'm sorry, for real. I ain't gonna stand here and act like that makes everything cool. But I didn't mean to disrespect you like that." Elias nodded. "Sometimes sorry is just a word. Sometimes it's a start. What you do with it, that's what matters." Jalen spoke up again. "We messed up, but I don't want to be stuck in that. I want to do better." Donnie walked around the table, picked up one of the laminated photos. It showed a young black Marine grinning beside a tank, sand clinging to his boots. He held it up. "This man right here? His name was Curtis Joyner. He taught me how to clean a rifle, how to dig a trench, and how to keep calm when everything around you's trying to make you lose your mind. He didn't make it past his 21st birthday." He looked at the boys. "He died so you could have this moment, so you could choose something different than what the world's trying to make of you." Tyrese's eyes settled on the photo. "What happened to him?" "Sniper," Donnie replied. "Straight through the chest. Didn't even get to yell." There was a long pause before Tyrese whispered, "I didn't know people like him existed." Regina looked around the group. "They still do. You're looking at some of them," Kellen added. "And if you boys got any sense left, you'll spend the next few years trying to be one of them, in your own way." The boys nodded, quiet. No grand speeches, no cheers, but the apology, real, shaky, unexpected, wasn't the end. It was just the first page of something better. The apology didn't erase what happened. No one clapped. No hugs were exchanged. But something in the air lightened. The crowd, which had swelled to over 50 people, began to exhale. People murmured, glanced at each other, looked toward Elias as if waiting for some signal that it was all right to move forward. Kellen looked at his phone. It had been almost an hour since he made the call. He hadn't expected this to become a street-wide gathering. A few of the veterans were quietly packing up the photo displays. Regina carefully folded one of the flags and placed it back in its case, handling it like sacred cloth. Luis passed out bottled water, not saying much, just watching. A few people from the neighborhood crossed the street to talk to Elias. One woman, middle-aged, with a t-shirt that said Grammy Mode, on, gently touched Elias's shoulder and said, "You raised this whole block today." Her voice trembled. "We needed to see this." Another man offered his truck. "If you want to sit in the AC for a bit, Mr. Elias, my ride's right over there." Elias gave a polite shake of his head. "Appreciate it. But I'm all right. Just needed to see something come back to life today." Kellen leaned against the light pole, eyes scanning the sidewalk. Tyrese and the boys hadn't left. They stood off to the side, quiet now, unsure of what came next. And maybe that was the point. Not knowing was better than pretending they had it all figured out. Then came the sound of tires again, this time a little faster. A local news van pulled up and parked just beyond the veterans' trucks. A young reporter hopped out, followed by a cameraman already hoisting his equipment. Someone must have called them. The reporter walked up to Regina. "I heard there was an incident. Can you tell us what happened?" Regina didn't flinch. "Depends what kind of story you're looking for." He blinked. "We were told a veteran was assaulted. That happened," she said. "But something else happened too." He looked past her, at the folding table, the crowd, the photos. "Would you mind if we got some footage?" Elias raised his hand. "Only if you point the camera at the right people. Don't turn this into some pity piece. That's not what this is." The cameraman slowly shifted his lens away from Elias and toward the photo boards. The reporter asked, "Can we speak to the man who was attacked?" Kellen shook his head. "He's said enough today." Regina nodded. "Talk to the kids instead." Jalen looked startled. "Me?" She smiled slightly. "Yes, you? You think this moment's real? Then speak on it." The reporter approached, more cautiously now. "Young man, what made you push him?" Jalen paused, staring into the lens. Then he said, "I thought it was funny. I didn't see a veteran. I just saw a slow old guy. But I get it now. I really do. I messed up, and I'm gonna do better." Tyrese didn't speak to the camera, but he stayed. After the interview, a few neighbors exchanged phone numbers. Someone mentioned organizing a community barbecue. A teacher from the middle school down the street offered to bring Elias in as a guest speaker. All around the block, something had shifted. Kellen looked at the photo boards, still standing against the truck. "Funny how the people we lost still find ways to speak," he murmured. Russell came up beside him. "They always do. Question is whether people are ready to listen." As the crowd began to thin, Kellen walked over to Elias. "You good?" Elias chuckled softly. "I got a sore hip, a cracked lens, and a knot on my shoulder. But yeah, son, I'm good." Kellen nodded. "Didn't expect this when you walked out your door this morning, huh? Life don't warn you when it's about to test your patience." They both chuckled, but the real ending hadn't come yet. Not until someone made the choice to carry the moment forward. 3 days passed. Then 5. The neighborhood didn't forget. On Saturday morning, a small crowd gathered again outside Percy's Corner Mart. Not for drama, not for chaos, just to check in. There was no stage, no press, no speeches, just folding chairs, paper cups of lemonade, and Elias Trenton, sitting under a tree in a clean shirt and a new Marine Corps cap someone had left on his porch with a handwritten note. Respect from the next generation. Jalen showed up with his little sister. She held his hand tightly at first, unsure why everyone seemed to know who her brother was. But no one scolded him. A few nodded. One older man gave him a firm handshake. Tyrese came too, late, as usual, hood up. But he came. He didn't speak much. But when Elias caught his eye, Tyrese walked over and sat down beside him. "I started helping at the rec center," Tyrese said. "They needed somebody to run the weight room. Figured I could show up." Elias didn't say much. He just patted him once on the shoulder. "That's how you start," he said. Later that afternoon, Kellen stopped by the auto shop where he worked. Regina was waiting there, leaning against her car, arms crossed. "You really pulled something out of those boys," she said. Kellen shook his head. "Nah, they pulled it out of themselves. I just lit the match." She smiled. Still counts. Back at the shop, Kellen took out his phone and looked at the video one last time. Not the shove. That part still turned his stomach. But the moment Elias stood up, the part where Jalen apologized, the part where a block of strangers stood still and let a lesson land. He didn't post it. He never would. Some moments don't belong on the internet. At church the next Sunday, Elias was called to the front. They gave him a new cane, engraved with the words, "Honor still lives here." The congregation stood and clapped. Not out of sympathy, but out of recognition. Afterward, a teenager came up and asked to interview him for a school project. Elias agreed, but only under one condition. "You better listen closer than you type." Russell and Donnie met with a few city officials that week. They pitched a plan for a youth mentorship program, one built not on punishment, but presence. The idea was simple. Every kid would be paired with a veteran. Not to lecture, just to be there. "You'd be surprised," Donnie said, "what a weekly walk and a 30-minute talk can do." They got the green light. As for Regina, she started something too. A small Facebook group called the Highland Honor Circle. Not to go viral, but to stay connected. To remind people that watching isn't enough if you're not willing to stand up when it counts. A few days later, Jalen returned to Percy's. This time, he wasn't with his friends. He wasn't looking over his shoulder. He had 2 bags in his hand, milk, cereal, and a small bouquet of flowers. He found Elias sitting on the bench again. "These are for you," he said. "I know you don't need them, but I wanted to." Elias accepted them and gave a quiet smile. "It's not about need. It's about thought." They sat together for a minute, watching the street roll by. No phones, no noise. Just 2 people, 2 generations, sharing time. Elias turned to him. "Tell me something you learned." Jalen thought for a second. "That how you show up matters," he said. "Even when nobody tells you to." Elias nodded slowly. "Then I think you're gonna be all right. Sometimes, justice doesn't wear a badge or shout through a megaphone. Sometimes it wears old boots, carries a cane, and teaches through stillness. If this story moved you, don't just scroll on. Share it. Talk about it. And more than anything, when you see someone pushed down, be the one who stands up. Subscribe for more real stories that remind us who we are and who we still can be.